Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, and with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
This show's brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation and the Compassionate Friends. Well, Heidi, we have got an interesting show today because we have got some people on that are working on helping kids who have had trauma and helping them to have success in the things that they're doing. And we've got two people on, Tashel.
Dr. Tashel Bordere.
Right.
I'm going to introduce Tashel because I love Tashel and we're friends. Tashel, Dr. Bordere, Tashel, is an assistant professor at the University of Missouri, Columbia. She is an expert on death and dying, grief among African American youth, particularly homicide deaths. She co-edited a book called Promoting Social Justice Perspectives in Grief and Loss. And she spoke to my students at Columbia University on the sudden death of a friend or a sibling, sudden death in general, and what's going on in the African American community. And she spoke about New Orleans because she's an expert on that and from New Orleans, and various rituals that can help kids and help save at-risk children. She's a rock star. I'm excited to have her on.
Absolutely, that's great. Well, the next person that's going to be on is from Harlem, Mothers S.A.V.E, and it's Jackie Rowe-Adams, and she has done some fabulous work in trying to get guns out of Harlem and out of the neighborhood. And unfortunately, she has lost two kids, Anthony and Tyrone, to gun violence. So she's going to have a lot to tell us about what they're doing to try to help these at-risk kids.
And she is another dynamo. I have been on her site, and she is just changing this community and empowering people to take back their community and to stop gun violence and to stop all these deaths that are going on. It's just, she's amazing. So I'm excited to have both of them on today.
Absolutely. Well, let's start out here with Tashel.
Hi, Tashel.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So great to have you on the show today. I think we last saw you at ADAC, Association of Death Educators, that we all attend. Now, talk a little bit about your research and the kinds of things that you've been doing for at-risk kids, particularly in the Black community.
Okay. Well, I do a lot of work with Black adolescent male youth, looking at their experiences with violent death losses, not just the violence piece, but the death piece that encompasses a serious look at attention to their loss experiences. And so what I found is a number of these youth are coping with multiple significant losses over time, so cumulative losses.
So they're dealing with not only family members, but they're dealing with friends, they're dealing with, cousins,
violent deaths of friends,
maybe
family
even a
members,
gang
neighbors.
that they're in, which
Perhaps.
is like a family. And
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's all sorts of deaths that they're having.
Yes. And they're coping with a lot of these deaths in the absence of support, and oftentimes by well-meaning people who probably would love to support them, but don't feel equipped with the tools to adequately provide that support. And so we have a lot of youth who have to persist by engaging in various strategies to stay safe because they aren't getting some certain types of support. So basically my approach is that we've looked at all types of things. We do the Stay Safe, we do the DARE program, and a number of those programs are not effective. And we do anger management even, but we're failing to look at these youth as holistic beings. My partner's a physician, and as a physician, you look at multiple aspects of a person when you're trying to provide treatment to help those individuals. And so with our youth, especially our Black male youth, we're needing to do the same thing, not compartmentalize them, but look at the multiple losses that they're coping with to support them.
So how do you help them, Tashel? I mean, these kids have had all these losses, and oftentimes they don't have support of people. So what works?
Well, I'll tell you some very hopeful things that have happened. One is I do a grief education program in Missouri right now. It's a shared grief education program, Surviving, Healing, Evolving Through Death. And what I find both in my research and also in practice is that these youth are very pleased to talk about their experiences. And so we need a lot of healing work with these youth to see some changes occur.
And we need to give them places where they can talk about it.
Yes, yes.
Instead of just not say anything and go on with life and not give them a place to be able to talk about what's happened.
Yeah, I think it's hopeful that these teens show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
they show up
amazed.
to meet with me.
And they're mainly boys.
Yes, they show up to talk to me. They show up to meet with me.
What do you do to get them to do that?
That's a good question.
How do you get them to show up?
I validate that they've had a loss experience. Oftentimes they're coping with so much that it's normalized in our society. And so they're enacting all of these dangerous strategies, needing to carry a gun or you know, that mask that they show on the outside when they're coping with so much on the inside. And so I sit with them and I lend them my ear. I bring water and peanut butter crackers. I mean, that's very basic, but I start with just very basic needs and validate their lost experiences.
Yeah.
And they have a lot to share.
And they show I like that you give them food too.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you one of the most recent things that was a very hopeful experience is that I was at a school where there was a student death due to a shooting. And so you have some people who are friends with the perpetrator and some students who are there who are friends with the deceased. And so in my time with them, I do all types of things, from acknowledging their loss to helping them establish a safety plan to looking at the next 55 years of their lives. And I focus more on the life perspective. I acknowledge the loss, and then we focus on life.
That's interesting because a lot of them are kind of living day to day, not even thinking about what they do down the line, right?
Yeah, it's hard to envision marriage, and it's hard to envision having children and grandchildren. But here's the coolest thing. Although, unfortunately, they expect to die, and that's realistic because they're surrounded by rampant violence, many of them hope to live.
Wow.
You know, and I think that's the best part about it is they hope to live. And so we end with they expect to die and they're desensitized, but they hope to live. And part of our charge is to find ways to support them in this hope, this quest to live, this quest for survival, this quest to prolong their lives. And so, again, when I meet with them, we talk about a safety plan, like what are they going to do at the funeral? Revenge is a very common reaction or response to the death of a person. They're hurting and they want these families to hurt as well. And so I help them establish safety plans, what they're going to do as the funeral approaches. So and this is very powerful, I have to say this. You know, in the cases of sudden death, we don't get an opportunity to say goodbye because it's so sudden. So a lot of our youth feel very guilty about this notion that they couldn't say goodbye, that they would have, if they had only picked them up 5 minutes sooner to take them to a basketball court, this wouldn't have happened. And so I actually capitalize on that. I give them a chance in their time with me to think about, since they were closely connected to the deceased, what they would have said to the deceased person in terms of a goodbye or last words, and last words that may have been shared by the deceased to them. And almost unanimously, the last words that they perceive would have come from the mouth of their loved one would have been, be safe. I love you and be safe. And so I use that when I'm talking to the teen. So I say, aha, so, not aha, but not like that. But I basically say, you know, so this person cared about you, and it looks like they want you to be safe, so it looks like they also would like to see you live. And so how are we going to honor that? And so that is another thing that I do, so that they're able to not just hear it from me or read it in the newspaper, but they can own it for themselves, because now they're charged with what they thought would have been their person's last wishes.
So
I love that. It's almost like the people that have died are speaking to them to a certain extent.
Yes, I use my time with them to give them that opportunity. So it gives them a chance to say goodbye, and then to also keep their loved one near and carry on life.
Now, do you see them on a weekly basis? How often do you see them?
No, I do intervention in school, so based on whether they receive me, and that's also very important in HOPE, like accepting help, as our teachers can't do everything. Our educators are charged with so much. And so having, so the training that I'm doing kind of helps, would help teachers, counselors, school principals, administrators have some basic understanding of children and grief and death.
That's what I was going to ask you. Are there certain things that schools can do, just certain do's and don'ts? I mean, at the beginning, if there's been a loss in a school?
Yes. Understand that some youth will be hypervigilant.
Okay.
That students miss days at points. At this recent school that I did an intervention in, the children were absent from school just because of fear of what could happen to them by showing up, because they knew the perpetrator, or things like that. So understand that they might be
for their own life.
Yes.
Okay.
But I also found that this one school where they're doing remarkable work, that these children, they have such an environment where they're able to have their experiences validated, that they do show up to school following these shootings and these different events, because schools can also be a safe haven for them, and should be. So one thing that I would highly recommend is training. Is you know, whereas only 1% of shootings actually happen on school grounds, but most violence happens in neighborhoods. But those experiences get brought into the school setting, and so just so that teachers understand that in every school there are grieving children, and in some areas especially they're coping with higher rates of violence, and that training would definitely benefit them to have.
That's really interesting. Let's have Jackie Rowe-Adams. Let's look at her role in now,
Sure.
because I want you to and Jackie to talk together, you know, after we see the role and after we've interviewed Jackie, because I think it'll be interesting to hear
Sure,
what she has to
absolutely.
say about your
Look
comments.
forward to it.
So let's take a look at the roll in from Mothers S.A.V.E, Harlem Mothers S.A.V.E.
Harlem Mothers S.A.V.E is an organization of mothers and fathers who have lost kids to gun violence. We are mothers who've lost kids. We just said we're tired and sick and tired of the pain. And we started off with 5 mothers trying to come out and stop the violence. Now we have 50 plus mothers and fathers. We are mothers and fathers who've lost kids. We can't bring our kids back, but we could certainly try to help another mother and another mother child by doing prevention and education. I've lost 2 kids to gun violence, and that's what made us start our organization. I thought my story was sad, but when you hear these other mothers and fathers' stories, it hurts. The pain never goes away.
Jackie, it is so great to have you on the show today.
It's great to
so
be here.
appreciate you
It's
coming
great to
on.
be here, and thank you for being so persistent.
I know, I had to call to
Jackie.
make sure you were here.
Thank you so much. I'm
Yeah.
glad to be here.
Well, you're doing such important work. So we're so glad to have you on so that you can tell everybody out there that you are out there making a difference every day and doing it as a tribute to your sons that both died.
Yeah, Anthony and Tyrone died separate years apart. Can you talk a little bit? How long's it been?
Well, 30 years for Anthony seemed just like yesterday.
Yeah.
I bet.
Just like yesterday.
Yep.
Who would imagine 16 years later I'll lose another child?
Oh, that gives me chills.
Tyrone has been dead 17 years now, of course, just like yesterday. But Anthony was 17 when he got killed,
Wow.
and he was in a bodega buying a drink, and some fellas was in there saying, and I hate this word today, look at that nigger. What is that nigger looking at us for? Now this was another other black, fella
Right,
saying
right.
this. And we should kill him, just like that.
Wow.
Just like that.
For no
And
reason.
for no reason. And the grocery man said, the owner of the store said, and your son was just standing there buying his tea, he never said anything. They followed him out the store, and he was near where my mother lived. He was visiting my mom on 122nd, where I was born and read. And they followed him, and they shot him.
Unbelievable.
And the store man said, I didn't believe this.
Wow.
I thought they were just kidding. And they caught the fellas right away because, they're saying if you see something, say something, it's not snitching, it's saving a life. Well, this owner
love that.
saved a life. And I mean, he didn't save a life, but he was able to catch the shooters
I like that.
and said to the cops, there they are.
Yeah. I know that's what, watching your videos,
Yes.
that's one of the things that you're saying to the neighborhoods. You're not a snitch.
You're not a snitch.
It's not
saving a
snitching,
life.
It's saving a life. Tyrone was killed by a 13-year-old.
That's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
He was killed by a little child
A
almost.
baby,
Right?
13 and 17, but the
And the
13-year-old
13-year-old
was a
had a
shooter.
gun. Wow.
Was a shooter.
Oh, wow. Now I know you've done some things to try to get guns off the street for Harlem Mothers S.A.V.E. So you started Harlem Mothers S.A.V.E. I watched a video where you said I just couldn't handle it anymore. I've got to do something.
Enough
right?
is enough. I woke up 2 o'clock one morning and said, after a day of like maybe 6 shootings,
Wow.
2 killings, 6 shootings, and I woke up and said, enough is enough. What are we going to do about all these killings? Like 2 in the morning, my husband said, Jackie, what's wrong with you? I said, I can't take it anymore.
Yep.
I said, who's giving these kids the guns?
Well, that's a
that
good
was the
question.
question that was called. Who's putting the guns in these kids' hands? But first I want to say, Tashel was phenomenal. You are phenomenal. It really, this is a great connection here.
Yes.
Yeah, we were excited
Everything
about
she said,
Yeah.
and as I was listening to you, was right on, because this is the work I do.
Yep.
She do it with the kids, but this, you know, we have a program called We Hurt Too, and that's the siblings that you were talking about.
Yep.
But we deal with the families, the adults. But I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I said, enough is enough. We have to call a question. Who's putting these guns in these kids' hands?
Yeah.
We went to Assemblyman Keith Wright's office and crying all over the carpet, 5 mothers. Just 5 mothers saying, what are y'all going to do about
like it.
We don't want to keep putting the blame on the politicians. We don't want to keep putting the blame on the police. We don't want to keep blaming all the teachers and the schools and everyone. We are to blame. We have to take back our kids. We have to take back our community.
Now, I remember reading on your website, you talked about people sell guns out of nail salons.
And
I had no idea.
No, let me say this. So when we called the question, Assemblyman Keith Wright said, okay, he named our organization. He gave us a name, said, do you like this name, Harlem Mothers S.A.V.E., Stop Another Violent End? We said, yes. We went on the steps of City Hall. We met him Tuesday, went on the steps of City Hall Friday, called a question with the 100 law enforcement. And while I was on the steps of City Hall, someone called on my phone, and I answered. I was in the corner, they said, we know you're down there calling a question. We want to let you know it's 3 bodegas and salon that's selling guns to kids.
That's amazing. I had no idea.
For real.
That this was going
In
on.
Harlem.
Really?
I didn't know this.
The next day, they shut them down. They shut them down. So these are the things that go on, and how easy access to guns. And one of the things our organization, Harlem or the S.A.V.E., is doing is prevention and education. We're doing prevention by talking to these families that have no clue. These mothers and fathers don't have a clue.
I thought it was interesting what
Tashel?
what Tashel said about keeping people safe after the funeral. Did the mothers know? I mean, you have to educate them about how to keep the kids safe?
You have to educate them because, first of all, you're scared, you're frightened.
Yeah.
After the funeral, you don't know who's coming after your other child because you have siblings, you have other kids. And you don't know, so you want to move from where you are or where your child got murdered or who their friends are around you. You want to leave, you're scared.
Yep.
So the fear never leaves. And especially if your child was known in a gang or tried to get out of a gang.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
It's hard to get out of a gang.
It's hard. So you're scared. And one of the things Harlem Mothers is doing is first responders. I was telling Tashel earlier, we go to the hospitals when these kids are shot to let the family know we know your pain, no revenge. We
the
whisper
no
it.
revenge.
And that's what Tashel was saying too. The
No
no
revenge.
revenge.
No revenge.
And because when your child gets shot or your loved one gets shot, the first thing you said, who did it?
Right.
We gonna take revenge.
Right.
So our role is to go and I whisper in the mother or father ear, and I say, I lost 2 kids to gun violence. I know your pain,
Good for you.
but no revenge.
Right, because they've already lost enough.
Yes.
If they do revenge, they might lose the rest
And
of their
then
life.
there's
It'd be
other
like, you know,
families, other families are hurting, more shooting, more killings. And that's some of the works we do. But we started off with 5 mothers, as you heard me say. I'm glad to say, but I'm sad to say, we are now 50 plus mothers and fathers.
Wow, that's
You're right. It is sad to say,
Yes.
but glad to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they have some place to come
Yep, for support.
for support.
And also, when we turn our grief into service and action, it's very empowering and it's very healing.
And for those
Absolutely.
mothers being able to
I
do
call
that.
it moving forward.
Yes.
I call it moving forward.
Now, what, Tashel, you're doing a little more with the schools, right?
Yes.
So if you that's pretty unique what Tashel's doing, isn't it?
What Tashel is doing is unique, but it's needed. And what we do, Harlem Mothers, we go around to the schools too and speak to the kids about bullying. We speak to the parents about what to look for. Do not say, a lot of parents, no, not my child, not my child. Yes, we say to them, yes, your child.
Yes.
So look under your mattress, check your child room. These are some of the tips we give them. check their their backpacks when they're going out. One of the critical things is know who your child is with. Even if they're 30 or 40, know who the company, who they're keeping company with. This is your house where your child is staying.
Sometimes it can be dangerous if they're hanging around 30 and 40-year-olds.
No, I'm just saying, I don't care how old your child or your loved one is. Still, if they're living with you, check their house.
Even if they are 30 or 40.
Even if they are 30 or 40. Look under your mattress.
Exactly.
If you see too much company coming in there, if you see your child leaving with the same color every day, or a scarf or a bandana, it's ways. Early detection. Early detection. Pay attention. Stay engaged with your children. Keep your children engaged. If you have them engaged, they don't have time, you know, to get into all this mixture. You have gangs out there that try to recruit all the good kids. But all they have to do is say, oh, I have to go home. You're not being no punk, or you're not, you know, being a kid that's scary. You're saying, oh, I used to tell kids, just say, oh, my girl, I got to see my girl. You know, they like that. You know? I have to see my girl. Yeah, she called it. But hey, get away. And you must tell somebody if you're scared. Because these gangs, these other kids, they show you a lot of love trying to recruit you. But then the parents, you have parents that want to be their kid's friends. That plays a part. You cannot be your child's friend.
Now, aren't some of them being raised by grandparents, too?
A lot of them being raised, and they're scared. They're scared of these children. They're frightened. In some cases, the police department do intervention. You know, we have a number where they could call the police and just let them know. The police are coming to your house. If you know your child have a gun in your house, a lot of grandparents have had that. Look under and you search and you have that gun, you make the call. They have a program where they won't arrest the kid or take you out the house. They're just coming and take that gun. If you make the call.
Wow.
Oh, if you make the call.
If
That's
you
a good
make
idea.
the call. So especially in the housing development. But I am just glad to say that we have people like Tashel and many others that's out there doing the work. What is needed is the communication with the police and the children. We, Harlem Mothers, is getting ready to have a day of conversation and fun with cops and kids.
I like this.
Because 3-year-olds is now saying they're scared of the cops. They don't like the cops. So we have to take back our community because we need the cops. We need the police.
I like to hear you say that.
And bring them into the community and get to know them, and they get to know you, and you know, you break down those barriers.
Tashel, what comes up for you when you hear Jackie talking about all this?
Oh, and I want to just add to that our youth also need a safety plan, though, because I don't advocate gun violence. In fact, we can't even use, I only allow love dots and not even bullets in my classroom, or like even notations. However, I know that a lot of these youth really, quite ironically, and it's upsetting, are carrying guns because they'd rather see, because they don't think that justice will happen for them. And we see that time and time, no motive, no suspect, because communities aren't taking ownership and speaking up all the time. And so a lot of these youth, in fairness to them, and as upsetting as it is to say, are playing with guns or carrying these guns because they are fearful of their lives. And I've had these young adults who I've followed since they were 12 to the point that they're in their early 20s, and they're carrying these guns because they don't want to see their mom have to go to their funeral. Like they feel like they would rather be caught by a police officer. This is how upsetting this is. They'd rather be caught by a police officer carrying a gun than to be caught by some dangerous person on the street, gun-wielding person who would kill them. And so I obviously am not promoting gun violence, but we also need to see more examples of social justice. We need to see more, because it does happen, but we need to televise it more. When people are brought to justice, we need more restorative justice. We need more healing work between victim perpetrators and the families of victims, because oftentimes they know each other. This is black on black crime. Most of the time, it was their best friend from childhood who shot them once they were 15, and so more restorative justice and more work, more examples again.
And the restorative justice what is bringing in mediators, bringing in people.
Bringing
that,
in mediators, but also more recently, I had a teen who he was afraid for his life because he had a relative do the shooting, but he cared about the person who died actually.
Absolutely.
But he was disenfranchised and couldn't attend the funeral
Scary.
because he was afraid he'd get killed. And what we talked about was him sending a card to his deceased friend's mother.
Okay.
Because they grew up together,
Yeah.
and at minimum, and so he thought that was a viable. I let it be up to him, but he thought, I didn't think about the fact that I could actually still send a card and help them know that I understand that pain, or I was, I'm sorry for the loss.
You
So
know,
things of that nature.
I liked what you said, Tashel, and I liked Jackie to comment on that about the fact that Tashel helps them look at their future rather than just trying to save themselves, you know. They may have a future.
She was right on, because they do have a future, but a lot of them feel they don't.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of this starts from the home. A lot of this starts with support. Just like advocates that's going out round to these schools speaking, we have to get more of that. Then, you know, the media plays a big part in this.
Yes.
You
I
know.
wish just, you were saying, Tashel, that you wish that they would play up more the examples of the police having, you know, coming in, intervention, good kids that do this to help out. They just don't play any of that up. There's
they
none of the good stuff.
And with every trauma and every tragedy, there's a lot of helpers and people that come in and are doing positive things. And I
Yes.
don't think, you know,
The
the media
media
is
don't
about
cover
if it bleeds, it leads.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
we need to
Yes.
hear. It's overwhelming to think
Yes.
that everybody out there is
Absolutely.
negative and you know, et
Absolutely.
cetera. We need to hear about people like the two of you and a
Absolutely.
lot more people that are out there trying to create change and solve these problems and
Yes.
One of the
change
things,
communities.
one of the things is you have people that talk to these kids and some of their families. Oh, you're not going to amount to anything. You
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
be. You can't do
Self-esteem.
this. They have to hear more often that yes, you can. And
Absolutely.
that's why I like the name of this program, Hope.
Open to hope. You know, we
Open
named
to
it.
hope.
We named it that
listen.
because we wanted people to be open to the idea. Just open these kids to the idea that there could
It
be
is hope.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
Yeah.
love this.
Yeah.
I love this. Hope. And
Right.
it is hope for them. And we,
Absolutely.
as advocates and as adults, as educators, as doctors, as lawyers, we have to begin and continue to tell them it is hope. We have to take back our community, take back our kids, and all kids are ours.
yeah, I like
we
that.
have to remember that
Yeah.
and give all our kids hope.
I
Absolutely.
love that. Well, let's close with
That's
that on the
beautiful.
show today.
Yes.
And thank you both so much for what you do and for being on the show. And hopefully, Jackie and Tashel, we can do more of this and maybe get some families on
Sure.
Open to
Absolutely.
Hope to talk about the good things that have happened in their life.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely,
Thank
we
you
will love that.
so much for helping our kids because, like you said, they're everybody's kids. This is
Yes.
the next generation.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
thanks for listening to watching our show today. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with Dr. Heidi Horsley. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, lean on ours till you find your own.
yes.
And God bless.